Hello and welcome to our course on Access 2013 Advanced. My name is Toby and I'm your instructor on this course. Before we really get started, I've got to cover 2 or 3 assumptions that I'm going to be making and explain to you 1 or 2 things about how the course is going to work. First of all, let's start with the assumption that you already have Access 2013 installed and also that you know how to start it. I'm not going to cover installation or startup on this course. The next assumption I'm going to make is that you have a good basic knowledge of Access 2013. Now, if you want to know what a good basic knowledge of Access 2013 is, take a look at the table of contents for our basic Access 2013 training course. If you look down the list of topics there, it includes things like the new web apps, it includes the use of the ribbon and toolbars, how to create tables and relationships, and so on. Now you should be familiar with just about everything in that list, to the point that if I asked you to explain it to me, you could probably at least explain in outline what each of these things was, and probably even show me a demo of perhaps a piece of work that you've done in relation to that. If there are substantial parts of that list of content for the basic course that you have no idea about or that you feel a bit weak on, I suggest you go through that course again and just either freshen your memory, or if you haven't covered the topic at all, go through it in some detail and make sure that you're comfortable with it before you try this advanced course. So what if you're a really experienced user of Access but from an earlier version? Well, if it's a pre-2007 version of Access that you're familiar with, you won't have any substantial knowledge of using the ribbon with Access, and I suggest that's going to be quite a drawback. If you've used the ribbon in relation to other Microsoft Office products, maybe you could get by, but I really suggest that you get yourself up to speed on the ribbon with Access first, possibly again by going through our basic course. If you've used Access 2007 or Access 2010 and other components preferably of Office in those versions, then the ribbon certainly shouldn't present you with a problem. But there are a couple of areas that are new. Now the new ones primarily are first of all Touch. I covered the basic use of Touch in our basic Access 2013 course. If you're not intending to use Touch, then to be fair, that really isn't going to affect you on this advanced course because I won't be referring to Touch very much. And secondly, web apps. Now again, in the basic Access 2013 course, we covered web apps a little bit, but in this advanced course I'll be spending a bit more time on them, and I will do a quick resume of the basics anyway, so that probably won't hold you up. But I really think you do need to be a pretty solid Access user to leap straight into this advanced course if you haven't done the equivalent of our Access 2013 basic course. The next thing I want to talk to you about is programming. Now even some quite advanced Access users just don't like programming. Some people just don't take to it for some reason. With Access, particularly as you get on to become a more advanced user of Access, it becomes increasingly important to learn programming, to use macros at the very least, but to write your own VBA code as well. We did a very basic amount of this in our beginner and intermediate course. If you feel wary of programming, you think maybe it's not for you, then you share that with probably thousands of other people. But I do suggest you give it a try. Most of the things you need to do, to some extent you can get by without programming, but it will actually stop you doing some things and it may well impair how well you can do others. When I cover programming, I try to present it in a way that makes sense to somebody who doesn't have a programming background. Give it a try. If you don't get on with it, well, you don't get on with it. But I do suggest that you really make an effort to understand what's going on, particularly with VBA code in Access 2013. Now, in our beginner and intermediate course, the Basic Access 2013 course, we developed this movie database, and if you've covered that course, you'll know that we started right from scratch, defined tables, queries, created forms, reports, and so on. And that covered really all of the basics of Access 2013. In the advanced course, rather than concentrate on one database and doing more work on this one database, I'm going to look at databases from a variety of sources, because that will help you to get more breadth in terms of your ability to do things with Access. Now, we won't be ignoring the movie database by any means. We'll be referring to it from time to time, and in particular we'll be using some of the databases that are available from Microsoft to use with Access 2013. One of the reasons for doing that is that, particularly as databases get more complex, you could spend hours just setting up data and typing in table definitions and so on. To illustrate some of the main points that we're going to cover, it makes a lot more sense to start with something that already exists, and then to add to that, or to explain that, or to adapt that in some way. So, one of the sources for the templates and databases that we're going to use will be the ones that are available from office.com. There's a selection on the start screen, as I'm sure you know, but we can also search. If you did our Advanced Access 2010 course, you'll know that we did a lot of work using the Microsoft Student Database, and that's one of the ones that we're referring back to from time to time as well. Now, with this course, there's a set of exercise files. They're all in one folder. Make sure that you've got your copy of those ready to hand. You know where they are. The list may be slightly different from the list that you can see here, but it'll be about the same number of files with about the same names. They are both the questions and answers to the exercises I'll be setting during the course. I'll also have a folder with what I call my scratch files in it. From time to time I'll get maybe an odd database, we'll do some work on it, we'll maybe just save a copy of it and so on. I don't expect you to keep any of those or to make your own copies of those, although of course you can if you want to. But you will see that scratch folder from time to time during the course. Don't worry about it. The only ones you really need are the ones that are in this exercise file folder. I also strongly suggest that you have your own project on the go as well. Maybe an Access database associated with work, or one that's associated with one of your interests. As we cover the topics, see if there's something in those topics that you can apply to improve or enhance the database that you're developing there as well. One thing that you cannot do too much of is practice. There's a lot to learn in Access, and it's not possible on any course to cover every version of everything. Quite a lot of backup reading is useful. The use of Access Online Help is very useful as well to build up your knowledge. Take every opportunity you can to practice and not just do the exercises that I set. And there's just one other thing to emphasize before we get started. I really won't be covering the basic material as we go through this course, so if you are a little bit shaky on the basics, don't assume that at the beginning of each section I'm going to run over the basics again. With most of the topics, I'm probably going to leap into them at a fairly advanced level to begin with. From time to time I'll certainly do a bit of whistle-stop revision, partly to clarify terminology, and partly because it may be that some aspects of it are the sorts of things that some people tend to get confused about, or maybe that are quite difficult to understand anyway. But it will very much be a whistle-stop tour of some basics, and then only from time to time. So if you are quite shaky on the basics, I really do think you need to go and make sure you can cover what's in the basic course without too much trouble. That's enough from me for now. We're about to get started on Access Advanced, and we're going to start with a nice bit of theory. I'll see you in the next section.